What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with an overdue but also just in time for the holidays review roundup episode for you all this week. Hope you're having an amazing holiday season. Like I said last week's episode, hope you're staying safe, staying well. Hope you're seeing a lot of movies, watching movies on TV or streaming, whatever. But again, hope you all are having a really magical, safe, and wonderful holiday. This is probably be one of my one or two last review episodes, I would say, or bonus episodes. I might have a newsletter for you all again towards the end of the year, if not the first week of January, the new year. Look out for that. But I'm going to try to hopefully have another review and run-up episode for you all, either for Marty Supreme or Marty Supreme and Anaconda next week. If not, even the triple one with Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man. I'm so behind that one as well. But I saw a bunch of movies this past few weeks, but then work has been really insanely busy, and then I lost my voice last week too, so I was losing my voice a little bit, so I now got it fully back. I think it was the allergies and the seasons changing, the weather changing definitely kind of got to me. So I've been really behind on this review episode, and this is my review roundup episode. It's going to be my reviews of both Rental Family as well as Eternity. And I'm going to throw in my quick non-spoiler thoughts on Avatar: Fire and Ash. I legit just walked out of the theater like 5 minutes ago, so I know Mose did an amazing job covering the movie last week on our last full episode of the podcast. But I do want to give my quick thoughts. I just walked out of it. I wanted to see before Christmas. So yeah, guys, I hope you're doing all very well. Again, of course, you can find this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, as always, on your whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and or your favorite podcast platform of choice. Like I said, of course, we have a full video show on our video element of our show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Well, you're on, again, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Don't be shy. Don't be a stranger. We're going to hear from you guys. Your feedback truly means a lot to us. We want to hear from you guys what you're liking, what are you not liking, what do you want to see more of, less of. Your feedback really and input means a lot to us. Going into the new year, we have a lot more in store for you all and the show. So again, really, your feedback will help us kind of like dictate and kind of like figure out what we want to bring back to the show, more guests, more interviews, more topics, you name it. So we want to hear from you guys. Negative, neutral, positive. Hey, all press is good press in our eyes, so we'll take it. So don't be shy. Leave us a review, rating, and comment on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. And again, we have still our ongoing goal is to get to, we're so close, guys, 30 subs away from 1,000 on YouTube, which can be huge, monumental to us. And of course, we also have our ongoing goal, of course, the past year or so has been definitely to get to that 200 ratings on Apple Podcast. I reiterate this all the time, but the reason why is because Apple Podcast seems to be the nucleus or the heart of filmmaking podcasts. A lot of other studios, a lot of other PR companies look at that as kind of like not a standard, but also kind of like not standard, but definitely kind of like a milestone for that, or kind of definitely more in a way for us to kind of get more access to screenings and events and festivals, stuff like that. So yeah, don't be shy, guys. We hear from you guys. And of course, thank you all for the ongoing support as we head into our 4th year doing the podcast, which has been crazy. But again, we're just getting started. And I know the boys and I all have a very fun 2026 plan for the show and for you all, to our amazing listeners and audience. So thank you all for tuning in, always showing up for us and supporting the show and us. We really do appreciate it. Alrighty, folks, moving on to the first review in this week's one of the last few review roundup episodes of 2025. Again, I have my review of a movie called Rental Family, a movie that, I was really not crazy about with the marketing and the trailers. I'll be honest with you, like it looked just kind of fine. I'll say that much. It looked fine. And the trailer though was giving me like ABC Family, almost like Freeform, like a very almost like, I don't know, like it was like kind of direct to TV movie back in the day, and I was like, oh, like Brendan Fraser. I mean, it looks kind of sweet here and there, but the marketing did not really sell me at all, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those like, I'm gonna watch it and see how it goes. And I was like, all right, but I remember this premiered early this year I want to say premiered at TIFF and a lot of other film festivals, and I was like, okay, I love getting us covering South by last year. We were part of that kind of like group of like, oh, we're seeing this movie, the first one to talk about it in our reviews, our reactions, whatever. But I, even before doing it, being a critic or being a podcaster, I just love kind of seeing like the first reactions to movies at a TIFF or a Venice or Telluride or Sundance, you name it, South by Southwest. So. But when this, I think, premiered at TIFF, I was hearing just the most amazing things in the world. I said, whoa, okay, hold on. That's interesting. But I was a bit worried, too, because this is a Searchlight picture, and Searchlight is now owned by, it used to be Fox Searchlight Pictures, now it's Searchlight Pictures, and that's definitely a umbrella of more smaller, lower budget films from the Disney company. And, unfortunately, though, out here in the small market that we are in Phoenix, if you're not on the press list or list for Disney, chances are you might have a hard time looking for movies like the Searchlight movies. I think last year the big one was Complete Unknown. That was a wide one, but a handful of time, like I think Poor Things came to us super late. I was like, oh wow, we're seeing this movie eventually. But I think I remember seeing that movie in March before the Oscars last year, because it was like, oh well, now we got it because the Oscars, but it was like it wasn't really playing by us. And even I want to see my favorite actor of all time, Bradley Cooper, has a movie coming out called Is This Thing On? And I just love the trailers for that. I'm really intrigued by the marketing and the story. It's an original film. But that's playing in one theater up north here in North Phoenix, the North Scottsdale area. And I'm like, I might have to go trek and go see that. But what I was worried about is that a lot of these Searchlight pictures and A24 pictures in a smaller market that we don't usually have a lot of access to it. So when I saw it, I was like, I hope we get it. And luckily we did, but it was very short-lived, I'll say that much. And then when I saw it, I ended up losing my voice and work got a little kind of crazy. So I was kind of like, oh, I have to review this soon. But I was trying to figure out, again, trying to get 100% back to review this for you all. So anyway, I was really glad that some of the theaters near us did get this movie. And I saw it like maybe like midday, maybe early evening, and it was myself and a very really cute older couple there just kind of watching the movie. And again, sorry, where's my manners? But Rental Family, if you don't know the movie, it's a long one. Thanks, cool. Okay, long premise. Struggling to find purpose, an American actor lands an unusual gig with a Japanese agency to play stand-in roles for strangers. As he immerses himself in his clients' worlds, he begins to form genuine bonds that blur the lines between performance and reality. Confronting the moral complexities of his work, he soon rediscovers purpose, belonging, and the quiet beauty of human connection. That really is actually a damn good premise, a damn good synopsis, because absolutely, this movie it's very delicate, it's very sweet, it's very heartfelt, but kind of like what the premise just said, when I was watching the first 20 minutes, I was like, oh, it's this. It's a movie just about human connection, and you feel so isolated from the world and everyone else. And I was seeing that because it's yes, to a degree, it's definitely a fish out of water story, but like Brendan Fraser's character has been in Japan, has been in Tokyo for a little while now. Has been like, oh, I just moved to Tokyo. Look at me, I'm the American Tokyo. No. He's been there for a while, and he's definitely struggling to find work there. His biggest fame was this like toothpaste thing, but people do recognize him from that toothpaste commercial because to our video listeners, video audience, you never see it here. Like, it was a pretty popular video commercial that with him as a toothpaste and toothbrush person. But really, what is that you have this guy who wants connection. He wants to be included. He wants to be around people, but he's just isolated. And I really think that's really kind of like a timely element of movies, or timely story, because I feel like, especially nowadays with technology and we're living in this kind of post-COVID world, I do feel like a lot of us have been isolated even more because of the pandemic and because of technology advancing and just the accessibility of really kind of more of a comforted, isolated life. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, really? That's interesting to go on this route. And I feel like, with movies especially, and a lot of TV shows nowadays too, you could either feel very sincere about it or feel very like, this feels manufactured, this feels very kind of just like, oh, okay, like you're a little bit preachy to a degree. And that never felt that way at all. And I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, they handled this idea and theme of isolation, loneliness, and rediscovering who you are and what excites you in a very delicate, very human way. And I really have to give props to the filmmaker behind this. I think her name is Hikari, who I'm not familiar with her work before seeing this, but she really nails this idea of, looking for connection, struggling to fit in and meet people. Not even like romantically, just kind of just finding your people, like friends, like being social in clubs, whatever. And there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where Brendan Fraser's in his apartment, very small apartment, and he looks out on his balcony and he sees people not creepy whatsoever, but people in their apartments, and there's people who have a partner, and people who have kids, and there's an old man who's kind of by himself watching TV with his noodles, and it's like they show different like people in their apartments kind of just like living their lives. But Brendan Fraser looks at them, he's like, oh man, like he's trying to find who he is, he's trying to find his calling and his purpose and his people. And that scene really got to me, because I was like, yeah, because it's very timely to today's themes and today's people. Just really I feel like we're self-isolating in a way of like, yeah, I got Amazon, I got Hulu, I got Netflix, whatever, I got this, and then I feel like even like with social media and online dating, again, it's all really, I think, really have been really great things to society, but also I think there's a lot of downfall, there's a lot of cons to it, a lot of like negative things about it, where people kind of, again, I was reading an article the other day how loneliness in my generation, I think I am Gen Z, but a lot of loneliness in my generation, and people who just really are struggling to find people, whether it's partners or whether it's friendships, whether joining clubs, not feeling shy, not feeling a certain way. So I really give this movie a lot of props for just really tackling those themes and just the idea of that, because you don't see a lot of films that take really good care of those stories and themes. And I was sitting there, I was like, wow, props to everyone involved in this. I really do. I really did appreciate that. And Brendan Fraser, man, I grew up with this guy. I mean, from The Mummy to George of the Jungle, I mean, you name it. And, he's definitely one of those interesting actors, because, again, he was a guy in the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, like, he was a movie star. And as a kid, I was like, oh, my gosh, I knew him from all these movies or whatever. And then, unfortunately, as the business goes, the industry isn't as kind to a lot of people, or say respectful, I would say, to a degree, and they kind of went away. But as I was in my teenage years, I was like, what happened to Brendan Fraser? Because I haven't seen a movie in a while, and he had a few misses towards like the end of the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s. But I remember seeing him on Blast from the Past, a movie that I adore, which is super underrated. He's so good in that. But it's really cool to see his kind of comeback from, obviously, when he won the Oscar for The Whale, a movie that I wasn't really crazy about. You've heard me on the podcast before. I'm not a huge Darren Aronofsky fan, but I love Caught Stealing, my top 10 of the year. With that said, though, it was definitely cool to see the kind of like resurgence of Brendan Fraser, because, again, I think a lot of us are so used to seeing kind of the goofy, witty action comedic actor, but now he's really kind of tapping into these more serious and more human, and these more more delicate roles, and he plays his role with such delicacy and such it's very cathartic, and it's very therapeutic, because the premise is that he's hired to be this kind of like this person in these situations, whether it's a friend, whether it's a guy helping out talking to an old man for a couple of hours, or a guy that wants to play video games, again, who's kind of a loner that wants to play video games with, or the big one in the movie is that there's a mom that hires him to be her daughter's dad, and the little girl think that's her actual dad, because she never knew who her dad was. And so he has to play, a father. And again, it's definitely a challenge for him as an actor in the movie. Because again, he's playing an actor in the movie. And it's like, okay, how can I play this way, whatever. But you can tell at first he's like, when he's joined this like agency of like, to be these like, to be this fake person, whatever, or a hired friend, hired hand, whatever. You can tell he's like, how do I do this? Like, I'm awkward. Like, this doesn't seem right. Like, I'm kind of against this, blah, 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 blah. And I really liked how the movie at first, like, he wasn't a pro at first. He wasn't like, oh, I got this. I'll do blah, 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 blah. He's very uncomfortable, because he's like, what the hell did I just get myself involved with? And the first thing he's a part of is that he's part of a funeral, but it's a fake funeral because the guy that the funeral is like, oh, like it's a guy who paid all these people to like be there for his funeral because he's like, oh, like if I die one day, I probably want people there. So it's like he fakes his own funeral. He pays people to fake his own funeral. But Brendan Fraser was like, what the actual hell is going on here? Like, I thought he was actually dead, but it was all staged or whatever. But that was kind of funny. Like, oh, because you see Brendan Fraser's like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, what? So I like that. I like that a lot because he wasn't like, oh, like I got this right off the bat. And you can tell he's uncomfortable. You can tell he's trying to like understand this, and he's like, well, I don't know really if this is for me, whatever. And the guy playing his boss was like, well, this is the job, this is what we do. But you can definitely tell Brendan Fraser's like, well, this seems very like weird and everything. But I really did like that it kind of took its time to like for his character to be like, okay, his name is Philip in the movie. That Philip is kind of like, he takes his time to kind of like find his groove. But when he does, you can see all the joy and the happiness he brings to these people, even though it's fake, even though they're paying him to be there. But you can just tell, like, it means a lot to these people. While they're just playing video games or going to the grocery store or getting ramen noodles for an hour and talking, and like, you can tell, like, this, it means so much to them. And you then see that, oh, Brendan Fraser goes, wow, like this means a lot. And then as he gets more closer to the family that the mom has hired him to, you know, be her child's father, but you feel that this little daughter, again, not knowing that this is all fake, you see the connection, you see the bond forming, and you're rooting for it because you're like, oh, this is so sweet, this is very cathartic, it's very therapeutic, it's very heartfelt and very wholesome. But you do know that like he's just a hired hand, and then he's gonna have to break this little girl's heart because either he'll have to go away or whatever. So I did like that it had layers and had depth to this character and to what they do. And speaking of which, you know, I really like that, you know, this movie, except for Brendan Fraser, that I didn't know any of the supporting actors whatsoever, from the little girl, from his coworkers. And I like that because, like, I think that it felt more real. Again, I obviously know, Brendan Fraser is definitely, for most of us, we know, like, oh, it's Brendan Fraser, da, da. But I did really like that in the movie that they didn't cast, like, other famous actors, because it would have been like, oh, I see so and so with this person, whatever. It just felt more grounded. It felt more believable. It felt more real. Because you're like, oh, what if Brendan Fraser was an actually actor in Japan and this actually kind of happened? And you're like, oh, what could have happened? So I like that. I didn't know any of the actors, and all of them. I mean, everyone in this movie was phenomenal across the board. Like, there was not one bad performance where I was like, oh Lord, like this is kind of miscast. No, whatsoever. Everyone just brought this really human element, brought this really vulnerability to this movie. And I was like sitting there, I'm like, wow, like I'm really good. But again, that goes back to the filmmaker Hikari, who I was like, oh, wow, like her direction is very direct, but no pun intended, very direct, but also very like precise. And I feel like she wrote this really great, she wrote this really good script. So sitting there, I was like, man, like I don't know, it was really cool to see this movie, to see all these new actors, for me at least, not knowing who they are, but they really enhanced Brendan Fraser's performance, but also his performance also enhanced their performance too, because it was a nice mix of like people that I didn't know with someone who was an Oscar winner, which he is. And you know, sitting there too, and I'm watching this movie on the big screen, and I was like, man, I'm really happy because, you know, I think when Disney bought Fox, a lot of these movies were going right to Hulu, because again, Hulu is owned by Disney. And I think the first year or so, like, or a couple of years, a lot of these Searchlight films were going right to Hulu or not even or to streaming. And I was sitting there, I'm like, well, it's a shame because a lot of Searchlight movies a lot of them were Oscar winners, a lot of them were like the indie, kind of like the indie feel of the studio system back in the day. And it was kind of like Disney erased that to a degree. Again, I'm not trying to point fingers here whatsoever, but it definitely felt that like, oh, Disney kind of like really took away these really smaller, lower budget, more filmmaker driven, more character driven movies to Hulu. And I remember watching a bunch of these movies on Hulu, and I was like, man, Searchlight really kind of got screwed in a way of like, oh wow, this used to be a market for it. And granted, though, definitely times change, of course. Right now, the box office really hasn't done well for films like this the past couple of years, especially now in the streaming and post-COVID world. So I was really happy that Disney and Searchlight wasn't like, oh, we're gonna put this on a couple of theaters and we'll put on Hulu, whatever, blah blah blah. Yeah, I don't think it did that well in theaters, but seeing an original film like this made for the big screen in a theater it kind of instilled my faith in Searchlight and Disney. I'm like, you guys have a really amazing studio like this that really kicks out a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers' careers, a lot of actors' careers. I think Little Miss Sunshine was Searchlight. I think my beloved Napoleon Dynamite was Searchlight originally. Then I think Paramount came on, whatever. I was like, oh, cool. I know, like, even like a lot of Wes Anderson films were Searchlight. Like one of my favorite movies of his, Isle of Dogs. That was a Searchlight movie from 2018. But like that probably nowadays go to streaming right away or Hulu. It's like, okay, like all right. So sitting there, I was like, man, like, I might. I see a lot of movies, of course, but then there's films that are original where I'm like, the original, again, I might just not like it, but I'll give it props either way for being an original film made for the theatrical experience. And this movie was that way. Again, this movie was great. And I was sitting there, I was like, man, just original films still belong on the big screen, no matter what people say or no matter who buys who, whether Netflix buys, Warner Brothers. Original film, lower to mid budget films like this still deserve a space on the screen, despite really getting the franchises and the spectacles. So I really do like have a it's a very rewarding feeling when you see a film like this on a big screen. The best way I could pitch this movie as well is walking out of it, watching it too, I was like, oh, it is this year's Holdovers. On a movie, if you heard me on the podcast years ago, Holdovers, I love this movie. I really do. I saw it at a screening. I knew nothing about it walking in, and I walked out just the biggest smile on my face, and I said, I love this movie. I was championing this movie. I was telling everyone about it. I took my family to see it when it came out around like Thanksgiving. And this was a Focus Features, which is kind of like the Searchlight version, the Universal Pictures version of Searchlight Pictures, which is more indie, more lower budget, more filmmaker character-driven movies. And I was just like head over heels for this movie. I watch it now every holiday season. I watched it recently. I get my feels when I watch. I get very emotional. Love that movie. I don't love Rental Family the way I love this movie, but it is definitely this season's this holiday season's version of the Holdovers, because again, it brings a lot of kind of like watching. Honestly, both this movie and Holdovers is like getting a warm hug in form of a movie, and I truly mean that. And so definitely a lot of Holdovers feel to it. But again, it's a mix of Holdovers, Lost in Translation, as well. Bear with me here. It's also a mix of the movie The Wedding Ringer with Kevin Hart and Josh Gad, a movie that I don't know if most of you know that movie, whatever, but a movie that I love and my friends love. Was a movie that my parents like a lot. It's a movie that, again, if you know, you know, but it's really it's definitely a raunchy mid 2010s movie, but it's a really funny movie because it's like, oh, what if you like needed to hire a best man and groomsman because you're a bit of a loner, a bit of like not loser, it's kind of harsh word, but like, hey, what if like you needed to hire someone to be your best man and plan your wedding, and hire these groomsmen, whatever? How would that work? It's probably I think honestly one of Kevin Hart's best comedies, if you ask me. But it's in a funny ensemble piece with him, Josh Gad, Kelly Kowalko, and a bunch of like other people. Even Jack Reacher, Alan Richardson's in this movie again before he kind of blew up. It's a great movie, but watching Rental Family, I'm like, oh, this is even The Wedding Ringer a bit, because you're hiring a best man, hiring groomsmen to be your wedding because you don't want to be embarrassment to your future bride or future husband, whatever, or future partner. And it's like, oh, I see that. So yeah, definitely a very eclectic mix of all three, like I said. But again, it's a very random mix of three as well. But really, just watching this movie, you just like, man, I just feel good watching. I felt really good watching this movie, and I walked out feeling like, oh, I just felt very touched and really moved, and I was like, oh. So I got this movie honestly a really solid 8 out of 10 because I just had a big smile on my face, and I was like, oh man, this movie just really got to me. I think why I wouldn't give it a bit higher is because I think it drags a little bit towards the end. Like it has a few different. Could have ended here or whatever, and there's a few sub story, a few subplots where I was like, oh, it would be cool to explore this a bit more, or this kind of feels a little underdeveloped a bit. So, but really, this movie is really just about a person who's also broken, bringing happiness and connection to people while he's looking for it for himself. So I would recommend seeing this movie for sure. If you can still see it in the theaters, great. If not, watching on Hulu, whatever's going to be on soon. But a very sweet movie. Oh, and also the cinematography in this is beautiful. Like, I was sitting there like, this movie's, wow. Again, a film like with this budget, shot on location, to me is like, wow, props. But the cinematography in this is beautiful. They explore they definitely make a Tokyo feel like a character in this movie, kind of like how Lost in Translation did. Like Tokyo is a character in these movies, and sitting there, I was like, yeah, the Tokyo scene just adds a lot of just like a lot of comfortability, a lot of warmth to this movie. And I was sitting there, I'm like, yeah, good for them for actually filming on location. And there's some, there's some beautiful shots in this where I was like, oh man, that's something like very picture worthy, very like, artwork worthy. And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man, just seeing the sets build and seeing on actual location to me was just very refreshing as well. So yeah, guys, I would definitely recommend Rental Family. Again, solid 8 out of 10. Looking forward to watching it soon. Speaking of the movie that also made me feel good and very, very witty, also another original film, emphasis on original film. Movie Eternity, and another movie that was also a big festival darling this year, I think from TIFF and Venice and a few other movies. And friend of the show, our friend Seth, friend of the show, I remember his reaction to this was like over the moon. He just was raving out this movie on social media, like, I see this movie, whatever. And again, we got this movie pretty late in Phoenix. There was a press screening for it, but again, we're not on the A24 list, not yet. One of our goals next year, of course. That's what the Apple Podcast rings come in handy for us. But in front of the show, Nino loved this movie too, and I was like, also hearing great things about it. I'm a massive Miles Teller fan, definitely a fan of Elizabeth Olsen, and also my girl, Devine Joy Randolph, who I adore from The Holdovers, also from movies like Office Christmas Party and a few other movies. I'm a massive fan of her, so whenever she's in the movie, I gotta watch it. But anyway, I like the cast. But again, Eternity was still playing by the way in theaters. I think it's just got the digital today, or this week. But I recommend seeing this in theaters if you still can. Eternity. In an afterlife where souls have 1 week to decide where to spend eternity, Joan is faced with the impossible choice between the man she spent her life with and her first love, who died young and has waited decades for her to arrive. I love this movie. I really, really did. And we just locked our top 10 of the year, which we hear this week on the podcast and also on our YouTube channel. This really almost made my top 10. It was so close. And I debated putting it in there. It was so close, but I didn't make the cut, unfortunately. But I feel like maybe I probably should have put my top 10. But I know. But anyway, I absolutely love this movie. I'm really glad my friends, were telling me about it, how much they loved it, and really, it's just one of the most actually high concept original films I've seen in a long time, and also too one of the most high concept rom-coms I've seen in a long time. You don't get a lot of these genre movies as much anymore for the big screen and for the theatrical experience. Like, again, this could easily have been a mini series or a Netflix movie, but really, and I saw it again when I saw it. Because we got it pretty late after it came. I think it came out like right after Thanksgiving, and I saw like the last week it was playing near me, a few theaters near me, and it was packed. It was maybe 75% packed, and I said, "Whoa! Like, this is an A24 film. Not a lot of marketing to this movie for the non-cinephile people like some of us are." And I was like, "Wow! I'm kind of surprised the movie has a really stacked packed audience." But again, happy at the same time. It's an original film that definitely deserves to be seen on the big screen. And right away, I was like, "Oh, I love this movie. I like because to me, it felt very like Michel Gondry, who has done stuff like Be Kind, Rewind. Also, mostly known for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, movie that I think everyone loves. It's one of the best scripts ever. It won Best Script for Best Original Screenplay years ago. But really watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is Michel Gondry. This is going to be a very similar Eternal Sunshine for this generation and this new movie-going audience." And but also too has a nice mix of Nancy Meyers movies, Alexander Payne, and a little bit of Nora Ephron. And I was sitting there, I'm like, wow, because again, I do think the rom-com is definitely a lost art in a way, like kind of a lost genre, because again, the last rom-com that I remember seeing was, I could probably blanking on this, but really, I mean, the big one that was noticeable was 3 years ago with, 2 years ago with Anyone But You, with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, a movie that I love, that was a box office hit. But really, though, I was kind of like, yeah, we're not getting a lot of rom-coms made for the theater. Again, rom-com let alone, but also a high concept original film like the rom-com like this for the big screen. So I was sitting there, I'm like, man, this is, I think humanity is healing. So I was like, wow, we're getting a movie like this for the big screen. But really, though, I was sitting there, I was just so the concept, because again, when you pass away, you show up in this kind of train station, kind of like very like Grand Central Station kind of esque kind of place, and doesn't matter what. I think the concept is like when you die, whatever age you are, you die, and when you show up again, and there's eternity in this kind of like almost like a hotel, like almost like an Embassy Suites kind of lobby. You show up in your most your favorite form. So in this case, Miles Teller is like, who dies as an old man. It was probably the first 10 minutes of the movie. Dies as an old man. He's back in his 35-year-old body. Elizabeth Olsen dies as an old woman, back in her 35, her most happiest self, or era of her life. And Callum Turner, who passed away when he was in war, has been the same age all these decades, who's been waiting for his first wife, by Elizabeth Olsen, the entire time. And I'm like, I like that premise. You show up in your like your most favorable form, and people might be when they're older, when they're a kid, or when they're a teenager, when they're mid 20s, 30s, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I like that. Watching it too, it felt like this movie. And I felt like it, but like when I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, there's a movie coming a couple years ago made by Alexander Payne called Downsizing with Matt Damon, which is a phenomenal premise, like great premise. Like, what if like in the future you can shrink yourself and you can like, for the environment, for humanity, you're doing something huge, and you can, when you shrink yourself into this really small form, but you get more bang for your buck with your housing and the food and everything. It's like, oh, it's a really interesting premise. The premise is great. The first half is awesome. Second half is it is a disappointment, and it's way too 2.5 hours is way too long. And it was kind of those examples of like great premise but really poor execution. Because halfway and you're like, I'm bored, and it takes this really weird route. You're like, this kind of sucks, and you're like, all right. But I had that feeling watching this movie, but this movie delivers on the premise and execution. Thank God, because I was like, one of those where I was like, this could have been no downsizing kind of situation. But no, everyone's movie is great. Miles Teller is great in this. Elizabeth Olsen, I love seeing her in non-Marvel franchise stuff. Callum Turner, who I know a little bit from things. I remember he was in the Fantastic Beasts, the Harry Potter prequels. I know he's now dating Dua Lipa, or as Wendy Williams say, Dua Peep. So I'm not too familiar with his work. I see him in things. I remember seeing him in The Last Letter from Your Lover, seen that a couple years ago. But I do remember, was he in Assassin's Creed? Wow, that movie was pretty bad. I forgot he was in that. Well, I can't forget about the movie in general, but what was he in? Victor Frankenstein? Also a movie that I saw in high school, and I was like, this movie sucks. But he's been in things that I've seen him in where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. But I haven't seen him in like a role like this, and really he's phenomenal in this movie. It brings a lot to the movie. And also again, my girl Devon Randolph, who I love, who's just awesome in this. John Early, who I know in a few things. The entire cast is great. It really is. Everyone has awesome chemistry. But to me, though, I just love watching Miles Teller and Devon Randolph together, because they had really great, really witty banter where, like, I love their whole dynamic, because, like, she's basically, Devon plays this, like she's kind of like a travel agent in a way, but more like a personal advisor for Miles Teller. It's like, hey, like, where you gonna end up at? You remember, you have a week. You can go here, you can go there, blah blah blah. Nothing like a travel agent / like personal advisor of the afterlife. But they had great dynamic, and I loved she was so funny, and they play off each other very well. But you believe Miles Teller and Elizabeth Olsen's love story. You believe in Callum Turner and Elizabeth Olsen's love story, and you definitely see the rivalry between Miles Teller and Callum Turner's characters. You're like, oh yeah, these hate each other because they're trying to win over their wife again, which is again because again Callum Turner plays her first love, and Miles Teller plays her husband of 65 years that she met with after Callum Turner's character died. But really, though, you're so I was so invested with these characters because you're like, who's she gonna pick? What if she kind of sitting on to both of them? What's gonna happen? Like, what kind of eternity are you gonna like go? There's I mean everything. There's like a beach world, a mountain world. There's like a religious world. There's like a no man allowed world. Like I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's like a world for everything. Which is like, oh, what's cool. I mean, for me, probably a movie world or some kind of like cinematic world. Probably if I had to choose whatever. But it's a really like interesting concept because you're like, yeah, what if in the afterlife you can pick like where you go up to? The thing is though, the catch is though, once you pick, you can't switch, and if you try to escape that your eternity, you can get, I think it was go to the void or get like erased in a way. It's a very again high concept. You're like, oh, I like that kind of angle or approach to it. You know, the comedy works, the romance works. It's a very blend of both. I was laughing out loud multiple times, but watching it, I'm like, I just felt good. I was like, oh, I like being in this world because again, it's like, oh, like you see people going to the Hawaii world, going to like the Alaska world, going to the Paris world. You're like, okay, here we go. But I do love that they have a week to choose, and it's kind of like very NBC Suites, very Truman Show, Peter Weir kind of world, and that's what reminded me a little bit too of a Truman Show, where I was like, oh, it's very kind of like had the like this hotel thing, and this train is very Truman Show, and there's a few things that I don't want to spoil it for you all, but like toward the end of the movie is very Truman Show-esque, and I'm like, oh, I like this kind of Truman Show angle to it as well. I will say though, it had a few nitpicks, is that it definitely drags a bit in the middle where you're like, okay, the pace was pretty good for the most part, but then in the middle you're like, yeah, okay, like you definitely pick it up a little bit. But again, I tend to see or notice pace in movies a lot more than I used to do. So, but halfway through, I was kind of like, ooh, the pace is going really well. Now we're kind of slowing down a bit. Now it's kind of dragging a bit, and then it finds its pace again. Even though I thought the ending, to me, I personally like the ending. The ending did feel a bit like anticlimactic. It's like, oh, cool, this happens, and then and the credits, and you're like, oh, that's it. And when I was sitting there, I was like, I wouldn't mind another like 20 to 25, even another 30 minutes of this like expanding of like what this means or what this this has happened now. So like, what does it mean now? So I was kind of saying like, oh, it was ends. Oh, like, that was it. And I wouldn't mind a little bit more. Like, I like these characters a lot. I was so invested in this world and this premise where I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind a little bit more of this movie. So. Yeah, that's what I think my few gripes of the movie would be like, oh okay, whatever. And you know, I got a little annoyed with the again, this is me a personal thing with the whole like competition, because to me I'm like, when you're dating someone, there should be no competition. It should just be, I mean, I know people see dating as competition. Like, oh, you gotta impress him or her or them, or blah, blah, blah. And I never like competition when it comes to dating. I mean, among friends or among dudes or among women or among whoever in general. I don't like that. Again, that's just me being me, of course. But like, I got a little bit of anxiety when I was like, when they were seeing Miles Teller and Counter like really fight for her. I'm just like, no competition. Like, no, girl, pick someone, whatever. But it's more of a me thing. But really, though, the score is great. The cinematography is great. The production design of this movie is out of this world remarkable. I was sitting there, I'm like, I was so mesmerized with the production design. I'm like, how do they pull this off? Who designed this? I was so like, in awe of this movie. But again, I don't know why I didn't make my top 10, but maybe in a month or so ago, when I watch it again, I'm going to be like, this should have been my top 10 of the year. But I absolutely love this movie. I'm really glad that my friends put me on this movie. I'm glad I saw it in theaters too. Again, supporting original films like this in theaters is part of the job, but also just really doing our part as movie fans. And I will definitely be watching this on Blu-ray, buying some Blu-ray when it comes out. But it's a very sweet movie. Also, too, this movie, again, as someone who went through a lot this past year with personal stuff, whatever, this movie really took its time to go over, like, to really talk about grief and loss and reflection, and in a very cathartic and very poetic way. Where I was sitting there, I'm like, well, I haven't seen too many movies that really kind of like handle the idea and the themes of reflection and grief the way this movie did. And I was like, yeah, or what it means to be happy and love. And I was like, wow, this movie really covers handles all these very subjects and themes very with such respect and such with such delicate care. And I was like, wow. And that's how I felt with Rental Family too. But the themes definitely hit me harder in this movie with reflection and grief and loss, where I was like, oh man. And it might be a minor spoiler, and I apologize, but there's a really cool element where like in every world you go to, they have like a theater thing. You can definitely see a live iteration of like the life you lived, and you see you and the person, whatever. And that got to me too, because I thought about like family that I've lost. My first dog, Addison, where I was sitting there, I was like, I got a little emotional. I was like, oh, and I sure got emotional in this movie quite a few times actually. I'm like, oh man, little teary eye here and there. But that to me was like, oh, you can walk. It's kind of like very museum, movie theater-esque. You can walk down like the hall of your life, and you see your entire life from start to finish, and these happy moments and not so good moments. And I was like, oh, very Truman Show, very Eternal Sunshine, the Spotless Mind-esque. And I was like, oh yeah, this works. So that definitely hit home for me too. But yeah, I love this movie, and I probably regret not putting this in my top 10, but really it's in there. I got honestly probably my favorite A24 movie since, I would say, well, no, I put Friendship in my top 10 this year. Spoiler alert. So probably since Friendship, but really though, like the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, this movie just really spoke to me in different ways. So I again love very beautiful movie, and I recommend if you see in theater still. It's worth every penny, every price of admission. But if you watch it at home too, please watch it at home. It's a great film, and I love seeing A24 take more still taking risk and gambles on movies like this with the concept and the idea and the writing and the originality of it all. So yeah, guys, I would highly recommend Eternity. Alrighty, folks, as I end this review, Roundup episode, like I said, I just walked out of Eternity, Avatar Fire and Ash about an hour ago. I was like, half an hour ago, I would say. And, as a kid, this was in Moses' top 10, spoiler alert for that as well. Moses' top 10 of the year. I remember my dad took me to see Avatar in 2009. I was in the 6th grade. And one of the theaters, it was like 3D was kind of becoming a thing. And one of the theaters that didn't have 3D for a long time was AMC Lowe's, North Michigan 600, I want to say, or 9, whatever. And it was 3D. And I remember as a kid, I used to watch all these these critics on the news and on network TV and newspapers like, oh my gosh, like 3D, blah, blah, blah. And I remember everyone's like, this movie you gotta see in 3D, the first Avatar you gotta see in 3D, it blows your mind, blah 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 blah. And I remember as a kid, when you love movies the way I did, and the way we did, what we do, you're kind of like, oh, like you're so mesmerized. And as a kid, I don't really know who James Cameron was. I probably seen Titanic once when I was a kid. I was like, oh, okay, long. But obviously though, like I was too young to watch. T2 and The Abyss and Terminator, whatever, True Lies. So I really I know concept of who James Cameron really was. But as a kid, I remember just being mesmerized by like all the visual effects, the 3D, the spectacle of it all. Like, this is really cool, whatever. But again, not knowing who James Cameron really was. As a kid, I remember I loved the first Avatar. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was this, and it was the 3D and the action, blah blah blah, like the visuals are groundbreaking. And then over time, I just never really, it didn't really stick with me. It didn't really stick with me the way other movies did, like how The Dark Knight did, or I'm trying to think. Back to the Future. All these movies I've seen as a kid growing up, but like theatrical wise though, like. It was one of those movies that I think after like 6th, 7th grade, I was kind of like, oh yeah, Avatar. Like it was an afterthought. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. And then obviously I got older. I watched T2, I watched True Lies, and I watched, The Abyss, all of Cameron's movies. My favorite thing he's part of, and there's no joke, I'm kidding, is his stuff in Entourage. That's my favorite show of all time. Him doing the Aquaman movie with Vinny Chase, love that. And actually, he's a pretty good actor in that show too. But the whole James Cameron, arc in that movie, that show was really cool. But I don't think I would call myself a really James Cameron fan. Yeah, I like T2 a lot. I like True Lies, but like, I do feel like, for me though, my equivalent of James Cameron is Chris Nolan. Seeing Dark Knight blew me away. Interstellar blew me away. Tenet blew me away. Like, I feel like if you're a kid, 80s kid, 90s kid, like T2, True Lies, The Abyss, the first Terminator, Titanic, like, this is like, oh my God, that's your guy. So for me, not so much. Like I said, I would definitely put more. Like I said, Chris Nolan is definitely in that category. How people in the 80s, 70s were Spielberg kids. For me, more Chris Nolan. With that said, though, and as time went on, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to see another Avatar. I'm kind of like, whatever. I know people are like, and I know there's a lot of discourse where like people are like, well, Avatar is just Pocahontas or Dance with the Wolves, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess so, whatever. But I just didn't like. It wasn't a film that I remember seeing in theaters. I was blown away by when I was 12 years old. But as time went on, it wasn't one that like I wanted to revisit or watch again, or wasn't really kind of discuss a lot with my friends and family and my other other people I know who are movie fans. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm sure. And then when 2 came out, I was like, oh yeah, Avatar 2, yeah, sure, I guess. And I think you gotta see, honestly, James Cameron makes movies for theatrical, as he's one of the few guys that few filmmakers that makes movies for theatrical. So you have to give him that respect of seeing movies in theaters, his movies in theaters, of course, because the technology, again, to me, the thing about Cameron is that he definitely makes movies for the big screen because of all the technology he does and all the VFX and the motion capture and the 3D. He definitely pushes the boundaries of technical filmmaking, visual effects, practical filmmaking. He always has. From T2 to Terminator to The Abyss to Titanic. Like, he's always pushing the boundary further for filmmaking, and I admire him that for sure. But again, his movies haven't really spoken to me the way that I think for other people at least. And I think again, T2, I own T2, I own True Lies, I like those movies a lot, but like I wouldn't put him in like a top 10, for me at least, top 15 at least of filmmakers. But I do admire the fact that all the work he's put into these movies and the dedication he has for advancing technology and 3D and VFX and mocap. It's like 100% for sure. So when Avatar Way of Water came out, I remember seeing it a little bit late because I was like, oh, yeah, no, I want to see this, blah, 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 blah. And, I saw that on IMAX 3D. That was the high frame rate. That was really cool. But watching it, I was like, wasn't emotionally moved. I was kind of like, oh, I was like, oh, the visual effects were really cool. The score was phenomenal. But the movie itself, I was like, it was cool. Like, yeah, I saw it on IMAX. It was cool. Like, I saw it in the way I wanted, in a large premium format, of course. That was nice. I thought, again, the water stuff looked amazing. The mocap was phenomenal. But, like, it was, 13 years since the first one. I was like, I was in middle school. I was in 6th grade. I didn't know my movie, knowledge was still kind of like, I was still learning about film. I was still trying to, figure out what movies I liked, whatever. But I walked out, I was like, oh, it was cool. I haven't watched it since. That was 3 years ago this week. That was 2022 Christmas. I was like, it was cool. Yeah, sure. Like, I just didn't. It didn't do anything for me. I was like, okay. Again, James Cameron, Big Jim Cameron, as they call him. Again, king of the box office. Avatar movies, the highest grossing movie of all time, $2.9 billion, whatever it is. Titanic's up there. Avatar 2 was the top 3 of highest grossing movies of all time worldwide. So again, the guy is box office gold. He's a king. I give him that for sure. But watching Avatar Way of Water, I was like, it was cool. And I also thought it was way too long. And the 30 minutes of them kind of swimming for half an hour was like, look at my watch. I was like, oh, we're still swimming. Got it. Good to know. So I was like, I walked out. I was like, oh, he's making 5 more of these. Okay. I wasn't hyped to watch another one. I was like, oh, I'm going to see it because I want to see it because I get I'll do it for the pod, of course. I think the second one came out right when we began the pod, a month after we began the show. So I was kind of like, oh, we'll talk about it, blah, blah, blah. And I was, again, it was good, but again, I didn't love it. And with this one, I'll be honest, the trailers didn't sell me, the marketing didn't sell me, and I was kind of like, it kind of felt like I had to do homework. I was like, oh, I gotta go see Avatar. Again, no one forced me to go see Avatar. No one forced me to go see this movie. Again, I had the Regal Limited Pass, which is great. I was like, well, I'm going to see it. Honestly, I didn't feel like paying the extra premium to go see it in IMAX 3D or Dolby or whatever. I was like, I'm going to see it in my local theater. I'll see it in 3D because, again, I do think his 3D movies look pretty good. And I've seen 3D movie in probably, year and a half, I want to say, give or take, if not longer. I was like, whatever. Because, again, 3D to me is kind of like more of a gimmick now than an actual, like, a need or a want to see in movies. But with this, I was like, Avatar, yeah, I guess, whatever. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to see opening weekend. I was like, oh, I'm going to see it eventually. And again, it felt more like homework. And then, so I was like, okay, I wasn't like hyped to watch it. And, I gotta be honest, this movie didn't really do anything for me. Like, it was, again, visually wise, it's phenomenal. Visuals, VFX, score, cinematography are, out of this world remarkable. Again, no one's doing it like James Cameron. I'll give him that. I do think the Andy Serkis Planet of the Apes trilogy did a really good job with that visual effects. But there's movies like this, the new Planet of the Apes movies, the attention to detail and the effort and dedication that's put into this movie, from the amazing VFX team to the Weta team to the crew, really these movies take a lot, and I admire that a lot for sure. But watching this one again, I was like, oh, it's another one. Oh, now it's fire and ash people, okay. And I'm not gonna lie, it also is 3.5 hours with trailers. This movie feels like 4 hours, and you feel it. I was like, the first hour, I was like, oh, it's only been a half hour. I got 3 more hours to go. I was like, oh, righty. And again, I hate looking at my watch during movies, but this movie, I was like, it just dragged. It dragged, and I thought Way of Water dragged, but this movie dragged. I didn't feel invested. I was like, okay, I'm watching it for the visuals. So again, I did see it in 3D. I saw it for the visuals. Again, I had a big popcorn. I was like, okay, I'm watching for this. And I admire the visuals, and I admire the VFX, and the score was boom, 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 very booming, whatever. And to me, I love Zoe Saldana, one of my favorite actresses working today. She definitely is, I think, the heart and soul of this movie. But everything else just kind of felt like a rehash of the last one. That was like, oh, remember when Sam Worthington and Stephen Lang were fighting the entire time as avatars? We're gonna have more of this, but now Stephen Lang has a girlfriend, has a girl love interest now. You're like, this is the same movie with new characters. You're like, wait, hold up now, what? So I was sitting there, I'm like, wait, this is a rehash of both movies in a 3.5 hour movie with better effects and updated effects. And I was like, wait, hold up now. So that I was like, wait, this is a rehash. Wait a second. And when I was watching, honestly, I kind of forgot what things kind of happened in the last one. But then when Moses talked about it last week, I was like, oh, that's right. This happened. That happened. I remember some things about it. I remember liking the third act of the last one a lot. But this one just felt like, it just felt like it just extended for no reason. Like James Cameron was like, we got to do this again. Another battle, another fight. We got to do blah, 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 blah. And it was like, well, for why? For why? Because honestly, if they ended the last one, I would have been like, okay, 2 movies, cool, and whatever. But this just felt like a rehash of the previous 2 movies with a bigger budget and newer effects. I truly mean that, because I was like, it didn't feel anything new or fresh. It was like, okay, cool, they're swimming again. I did like the story. To me, though, being an animal lover, having a dog, I like the whole thing about animal cruelty in this. That was in the last one too. But again, my point again, the last one had the same kind of theme about animal cruelty. Kindness to the animals of the water and the ocean, whatever. That I did like, but really anything else, I was like, this is just the same movie with just now a new tribe of fire and ash people, and the Na'vi and Pandora. I was like, okay, I guess. So if this is going to be the same thing for 4 and 5, honestly, guys, halfway through, I was like, I'm kind of done with these movies. I was kind of done with the last one at the last one, but like now I'm kind of like, you know what? If they make 4 or 5, if I see it, maybe, but I really have no appeal or no really like, oh, I'm going to see Avatar 4 or 5. I can't wait to see it. I'm kind of checked out with this franchise. I'm kind of am. I'm like, okay, like, sure. They just don't do it for me. I feel like as a kid, I was maybe getting more mesmerized by the visuals and what they had to offer. But this, I felt bored. I felt bored, and again, the runtime was way too long. And I just kind of felt like, not unimpressed. Again, the visual effects in this are just out of this world amazing. And then the attention to detail was great. But also, I was kind of like, I don't care. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I feel like I think he's already made 4 and 5 in the canon already. It's been working on like 25 plus years, or whatever. It'll be 20th anniversary of the first one in 4 years in 2029. James Cameron, man, I think it's time to go back to Earth, homie. Like, go back to Earth. I think go back to Earth. Go back to doing stuff like, go back to doing original stuff again. Give us a T2 equivalent of nowadays. Give us another True Lies, or whatever, or the Abyss. Like, go back to Earth. Go back to doing original stuff. Yeah, and I feel like I'm saying about a lot of filmmakers now. Like, hey, guys, you're too up your own world with your own worlds. Again, no lie, you've created something original. Of course, with the first one, original to a degree, with some some other movies, similar influence, whatever. But James Cameron should go back to Earth and make original stuff again. Because I think he's just so caught up with like, I gotta perfect this VFX and these VFX and visual effects so much, and motion capture to a point that I can't stop. I think he's so like caught up with that than the actual storytelling. And like, again, it's another example of substance over style. Style over substance. Sorry, where it's like, oh, you're putting almost work into the practical effects and the water and the technology, but like you're missing out on the story and the heart of what this movie is supposed to be about. And I don't know. I don't really care anymore. And when the movie ended, I was like, okay, like there's definitely some setup for a third one to a degree, but I was like, I don't care. I don't know. So yeah, I'm watching it though. Again, I'm seeing it for the visuals, seeing it for the motion capture work, and seeing it for the score. Again, it's a spectacle. And James Cameron has definitely been that guy, filmmaker, for the spectacle experience. But also, I feel more emotionally invested in other movies that other filmmakers are doing it. Whether it's a Ryan Coogler, whether it's a Chris Nolan, whether it's Greta Gerwig, whether it's Spielberg's still doing it to a degree. But like, there's a lot. Denis doing it really good right now too. So I'm like, I feel like a lot of other filmmakers there, I'm more attracted to their spectacle filmmaking than James Cameron is. Now with James Cameron, I'm like, yeah, all right, sure, whatever. Yeah, and then the Stephen Lang, who I like, I mean, it's playing this, like, again, he's playing the same character again, but like now he's love interest, and that was weird. And I was like, okay, like it got weirdly horny at one point in the movie, and I was like, okay, like, all right. I did like some of the the cool fight scene in like the first hour and a half that I liked a lot, but the third act felt very repetitive of the last movie's battle. I was like, wait, did we see this last movie with the same? Never mind. So I don't know. Sam Worthington I like to a degree. I think he's a bit of a bad rap personally, but I don't think he's a bad actor. Like, oh, I do think it was part of that. He was part of that actors of like, here's your new movie star, and everyone was like, no, we good, homie. Like him, Joel Kinnaman, and a few others too. They were like, yeah, no, we're good. And again, that's a little bit harsh, I would say, but I do think he's a good actor. $400 million of the movie, jeez Louise. Sure, but yeah, I don't. I was sitting there. I'll tell you this: I thought Una Chaplin, who plays the new villain, the Fire and Ash people, and she's the granddaughter of the great Charlie Chaplin. Which was really cool. To me, I thought she stole the show. Her and Zoe Saldana, to me, both stole the show because, like, you can tell they're putting their all into these roles, into all the motion capture. I mean, you're sitting there, like, you definitely tell, like, this means a lot to them and the characters, but everything else, I was just like, I'm kind of checked out. So for that, I got to give this movie really a solid. I don't want to give it a 5. I was going to say 5 out of 10. No, I'd give it probably or 6 out of 10 just because of the visuals and the score. I mean, it's not an enthusiastic 6 out of 10. I don't know. When I was watching it, I was like, sorry, if I didn't give my rating, so probably been a long week, guys. My rating for Eternity was 8.5. But Fire and Ash, Avatar, I'm like 5.5 out of 10 seems kind of fair, I would say, because again, it's not a bad movie, but just to me, there's nothing really special about it other than the VFX and the score. That's really about it. And there's some cool fights again, really cool fight scenes, really cool battle scenes. But again, it was like, oh, I saw this last time in the last movie. It's on the first movie, when I was in 6th grade. So I'm like, I don't know. So I'm kind of like, I think I'm kind of checked out of Pandora, and I think James Cameron should too. And I think go back to making original films. made him so iconic filmmaker to begin with. But yeah, I know, to me, it just didn't really do anything. I think I'm kind of like over these movies, and they spent a lot of money on these movies too. But no, I'll probably make $2 billion because there's nothing coming out in the next few weeks that will be competition other than Anaconda and Marty Supreme. The next big movie coming out is, I think, January 16th with 28 years later, Bone Temple. So yeah, I mean, he probably has a hold on the box office till end of the year, but I don't know. It's another franchise that Disney owns now. That's going to be like another box office hit, but again, it's more style over substance. But yeah, and walking out of it. Also, oh my gosh, I saw it in one of the most obnoxious crowds. People were on their phones. This one guy kept going to the bathroom every 10 minutes. I'm like, dude, stop drinking water or lemonade, please. Every 10 minutes, I was in a recliner seat. Every 10 minutes, bathroom. I hope he was okay, first off. It was more of a health concern. And there's kids running down the stairs left and right, and they were playing in the middle. I was like, oh, come on. This is like the worst experience to see this movie, whatever. But that didn't bother the movie itself. But I was sitting there, I'm like, one guy in the back. So yeah, I was talking to him. I'm like, oh, come on. If you're going to talk, whisper or be very discreet about it. But people behind were just like yelling, and I was like, oh, all right. To me, some of the humor did work. Like there was a line, there was Jermaine Clement from Fly of the Conchords and a few other things had a really funny line where I was good. That made me laugh, whatever. But other than that, some of the force, like oh man, you're a bitch, or oh, you're a shithead. It's like okay, like something like the cursing was a little like okay, this looks very 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 childish, very immature. Where I was like okay, guys. Focus on the script next time, folks. But yeah, guys. Again, if you're a fan of that arc, and obviously if you haven't seen it yet, don't let me stop you, of course. But I don't know. I'm not really moved by these movies anymore, or really have any emotional interest in these movies as much. I'm like, oh, they're fine. But and I kind of feel the same way even with Avengers Doomsday. So spoiler alert for everyone who's seen the trailer. It's been on the news everywhere last week with Chris Evans coming back as Captain America. Listen, I was part of that. I mean, again, for me, myself and Nick and Moses, we were part of that, the early with the MCU beginning, from the MCU to Endgame. That was a special time, and the hype for that movie was so unreal. It was unmatched, and now it seems kind of like they're bringing back old shit to kind of keep their ass afloat, or trying to win back the fans. And it's like, guys, focus on making a good story, good movie, or good. Again, I'm guilty. I love No Way Home because to me the ideas, again, Doug, come on now, the nostalgia, of course, we're seeing Toby and Andrew and Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe and Jamie Foxx and Thomas Hayden Church, Risa Fons. Yes, I'm guilty of that as well too. But that to me, I think, was a special moment in Spider-Man lore and storytelling. But after Spider-Man No Way Home, Marvel had a hit, miss after miss after miss after miss. Shows weren't good. So I feel like now they're kind of playing damage control. They're bringing back Captain America, Steve Rogers. But it's like, hey, well, how about let Anthony Mackie have his 10-year first. I'll have his little time a little bit. But it's like they're very reactionary. It sounds like. So even then, I was kind of like the trailer for Doomsday played before this movie, and I was like, Captain America's back. I don't feel hyped the way I did a couple years ago, prior to Endgame or prior to Infinity War. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So. Maybe I'm getting a little bit older. Again, I'm not trying to be bitter or bitter old man or anything, but to me, I'm just I'm not I feel like I'm more hyped for original films the way I was for Sinners, and the way I was for F1 or One Battle After Another, and now even with, like I said, with I don't know, hyped for the Odyssey because Chris Nolan, Chris Nolan is the guy. But I don't know. I'll still see Doomsday opening night, of course, with the crowd. I'll probably see it with the boys, as we did in college. So. Yeah, I know. Maybe my taste is changing a little bit, but I can always want to support movies in theaters no matter what. So, yeah, folks. Again, hope you enjoyed this triple feature to a degree review Roundup episode this week. So hopefully I have another one for you all for Marty Supreme and Anaconda. If not, look out for one beginning of the new year. And then, of course, please listen to our top 10 of 2025. We did a great job last week. The boys and I had a fun time doing that. So look out for that as well on our YouTube channel as well as our podcast feed. But again, as always, guys, hope you're having an amazing, safe holiday, whether you're with loved ones, friends, even by yourself. Stay well, stay safe, enjoy this magical time of the year. And of course, as always, we will see you guys at the movies.